world violence is heating up. It has caused even President Reagan to wonder if we're not now approaching Armageddon and the end of this world. In fact, Armageddon has been very much in the public press within the last 6 months. Editors and writers are wondering if world conditions are not heading to Armageddon and the end of the world. Now, Bible prophecies tell us that Jerusalem and the Middle East are destined to be the center of world violence and world disturbances from now on until that battle of Armageddon and the end of this world and the second coming of Christ to start another and a new world, the world tomorrow.
The world tomorrow. The Worldwide Church of God presents Herbert W. Armstrong, internationally recognized ambassador for world peace, visiting prominent leaders around the globe, discussing the cause of world problems, and proclaiming the good news of the world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Herbert W. Armstrong.
I think most of our listeners, viewers, know that I travel over the world, that I speak personally with many heads of governments in many nations all over the world. And some people have asked me, well, what do I talk about? Do I try to tell them about Jesus Christ? Do I try to get them to give their hearts to Christ and to be converted, to receive Christ? No, and even Jesus himself, when he was on earth, didn't ask people to receive him, and wouldn't they give their hearts to him? He talked to them about the things they were interested in, and I talked to heads of government about world conditions, about their concerns and worries, and about world peace and how it's going to come. I talk to them about the way to world peace. I tell them we're not going to have world peace of our own efforts. It's not going to come that way. But I do tell them about the second coming of Christ, and that God is going to send Jesus Christ to this earth to set up the kingdom of God. One nation ruling the entire world, all nations, and to bring us peace. We won't do it ourselves. God is going to have to do it to us. Now, in my most recent trip, I was visiting both Jordan and Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, I had a private conversation with Menachem Savador, the Speaker of the Knesset. Now, the Knesset, as I think most of you know, is their Congress or their parliament, their lawmaking body. For the first time, so far as I know, they allowed a private television crew to take for television this conference between me and the Speaker of the Knesset. I was accompanied in this interview by my own personal aide, Aaron Dean, by our world news editor for the Plain Truth, Mr. Gene Hogberg, and by the recent Consul General of Israel to Los Angeles, Michael Ravid. So now I want to show you that conversation just as it was televised by our own television crew.
You know that we have some basic problems in the Israel economy, and then there are the conjunctural ones. Mm-hmm. The basic problems are that a country is spending 1/3 of its gross national product on defense, 1/3 to pay off debts. Now we are a coalition government, and the tail is wagging the dog.
Yes.
In other words, every small splinter group is stretching out the arm. They are not arm strong, they are arm weak.
Yes.
and they ask for money to run their ministries and to prove that they are successful. And since 1/3 of our gross national product is inadequate to provide all this welfare and education and development, they address themselves to a printing press. I'm simplifying a complicated subject, Mr. Armstrong.
Well, do you know, I see now, as I didn't when I was younger, the trouble in the whole world. And it's the trouble here, it's the trouble in other places, and it's the world trouble. It's every man for himself. People will join together and ally in groups, provided that group can be against some other group. It's person against person, group against group. Two cannot walk together in peace except they be agreed. If there's contention, and if you're in a bad attitude and one is trying to get the best of the other or take from the other, you have no basis for peace. Now that's the trouble in the whole world.
Mr. Salvador, knowing that Mr. Armstrong has been a frequent visitor to Jordan and had just completed a 5-day visit to Amman, asked his impression of the mood there today.
How did you find any esprit ouvert, what we say in French, any open-heartedness and a new spirit that we could engage in a dialogue and hammer out a settlement between us and our cousins?
Last time I talked with King Hussein was last March, and I told him that one thing that I would like to do would be to get him and Mr. Begin together on my jet aircraft. And I said, I know Mr. Begin would like to do it, and I know you would, if. And he began to laugh, and he said, yes, I would, if. The if is the other Arab nations and what they would say about it. I find that the Jordanians do not feel as hostile toward Israel now as I think other Arab nations do.
Well,
I think they really would like to be friends.
There is a variety, but
they still have different ideas about, especially the West Bank and things like that, you know.
Well, I would like to tell you, Mr. Armstrong, and this is a fact. About the 18th or 17th day after the war broke out
in Lebanon,
and Syria was beaten, and Soviet prestige was at the lowest ebb, and the source of intimidation was not there. But then they started with new plans. Instead of giving it a push and a momentum, sit down and discuss peace, you wanted, I say you, the American government wanted to enlist at the same time the full friendship of Syria and the PLO. And, you know, there were all sorts of negotiations behind our back, and they allowed the Soviets to rearm and to reintroduce themselves with 5,000 more experts and new, more sophisticated, dangerous weaponry, and that's where we failed. Well, and I'm saying because after all, the United States of America is the protector of the free world.
Yes.
They are the protector of the free world. If God forbid they just wrap up and they disappear from this area and so on, I don't know.
The United States wants to be a friend of Israel. They want to support Israel, but also our government at Washington wants to keep the friendship of the Arab nations. So
well, this is legitimate. This is legitimate. This is legitimate. You can keep the friendship with the Arab countries if you show resoluteness, if you show vigor and vision, and you show tenacity, perseverance. You have to, in order to address yourself to the Lebanese entanglement, You have to attack the fundamental issues, and you should not divorce yourself from the historical basic data about this country. So they have a national pact that the president should be a Christian, the prime minister is a Muslim, the president of the parliament is a Muslim Shiite, and so forth.
Yes.
And unfortunately, on this, in this animosity and this ethnical mosaic that you have in Lebanon, with Soviet communist agents inside,
yes,
and the wrangling and bickering and the skirmishes between them encouraged, the Soviets resuscitating all the time, it is, I'm afraid, a very, very unpleasant task.
Yes.
Almost immaterializable. I don't know how they are going to... Well, we are living in a turbulent world.
But I tell you, this is only going to be solved one way. And we humans aren't going to solve it. But the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is going to have to solve it for us. And it will be solved. And it won't be long now. And it will be done. I don't mean a year or so, but I don't mean another 100 years either. We're in a crisis at the close of all civilization in this world. And the very hub of the whole world crisis is right here. Well, and things are going to happen here to Jerusalem. Now, one thing I can tell you, you're going to see big events take place in Europe very soon. I'm in touch personally with the men that are leading in a movement to unite Europe, reunite.
Well, in the Christian times,
and they
it was
can't
united.
understand why they're not making better progress right now. Franz Joseph Strauss, Otto von Habsburg are friends of mine, and they're working for a united Europe. And it's going to happen sooner than they realize. Mr. Habsburg came to Pasadena to see me about 2 months ago. And he was a little discouraged that they're not making faster progress. Something is going to happen to force a new united Europe that'll be a nation as strong and as powerful, if not maybe more so, than either the Soviet Union or the United States. Now, our people in the United States don't believe that. Nobody believes it. But biblical prophecy says it's going to happen. And mark my words, it will happen. And I'm not speaking just like a wild-eyed fanatic that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well,
and it's going to affect Israel over here very seriously. It's going to affect the United States very seriously.
Well, the idea of a united Europe is in my opinion, realizable, and after all, Europe was one nation with several languages and vernaculars.
United by the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Prophecies, like the 2nd chapter of Daniel, the 7th chapter of Daniel, and a few other chapters in Daniel. The 14th chapter of Zechariah tell us a lot, and that is not make-believe.
Well, I wish I could have you when I'm arguing with the Orthodox and National Religious Party here, and to have your background in the Bible.
I can only tell you.
I could resist all the pressures of the religious parties in this Knesset.
But Believe me, you'll find the Bible is true. Absolutely. And it's going to happen.
Well, I wish it come true.
People just can't understand and they can't believe. They don't believe what it says. If they believe what it says, we could have a better world.
Well,
it's
we
not
live,
just some visionary.
we
It's
live,
practical.
Yes, we live in a consumer society which deserted the tenets and values, basic values of our culture, of our civilization. This is a menace to the survival of the basic moral values of the Western world.
It all gets back to a way of life. A way of life. There is a law, and law merely, now you're a law-making man, the Knesset is a law-making body. I spoke before the Constitutional Law Department of the University of California in their law school. And I was mentioning that law is merely the rules to regulate human conduct. It's a way of life. The law of God is love, which is outflowing regard and concern for the good and welfare of others as well as yourself, and equal to yourself. And we don't have that in this world. We have a law operating in this world, and that law is vanity. I love me, I don't care about you. Every man for himself. I want everything for me, but I'm going to disagree with you. It's competition instead of cooperation. Instead of cooperation and unity in the right attitude and spirit, we find people joining together in conflict with other groups, one group against another. Now, in World War II, the United States and Britain were fighting against Germany. Now they try to ally with Germany against Russia. In World War II, the United States was allied with Russia against Germany. And we ally, and then we change our alliances. And we don't see it all gets back to a basic attitude of mind and way of living. Now, I see that God's way is wanting to help, wanting to share. Now, that's the way we do. We come to Israel. We don't ask anything of Israel. We're not trying to get anything here. You can't find a single friend of ours over here that'll tell you I've ever tried to get anything here.
No.
I come here to give. And you can check that all you want to, and you'll find that's true. And when people can get into that attitude, we'll begin to have world peace. Now, we're not going to have that until, the Bible also prophesies a Messiah is going to come. And it is going to happen, and we are going to have world peace. We're not going to have it man's way as long as man wants to organize, as he's doing, this group against that group, this nation against that nation, this individual against that individual. It just can't be.
You're right.
As for us, we're not going to solve the world problems right now. And as for us, meaning the work that I'm doing, not the United States, we love Israel, we love the people of Israel, and we come here in peace to help, to give, to share. We know we're not going to bring peace now. My job is to proclaim the way of peace, not to accomplish peace, but to proclaim the way of the Almighty God who's going to accomplish it. and going to do it to us, whether we like it or whether we don't. He is going to compel people to have peace.
Well,
and it's going to take force. It's going to take a force greater than human force. And in the meantime, we just try to have as much peace as we can. Now, I'm a friend of Arab people, a friend of the Israelis, a friend of the Japanese, a friend of black people in Africa, and we have projects in all of these countries. And we know we're not going to bring peace, but we believe we should do what we can toward peace in the meantime. And I proclaim the way of peace.
Well, Mr. Armstrong, I am, first of all, very privileged to have you in my office, in the fortress of Israel's democracy. Mm-hmm. May I just present you with the Medal of the Knesset. It features the building and then the sides of the three monotheistic faces that Jerusalem is holy to them. Mm-hmm. So here is the medal which shows Jerusalem, for which you have done so much, and the Knesset, the only fortress of democracy in the Middle East. And here is what I say to the Honorable Mr. Herbert Armstrong in appreciation of his true friendship for the land and people of Israel and his magnanimous gestures which aid and strengthen the spiritual and moral tenets of our common culture. Menachem Savidor, Speaker of the Knesset, with my best wishes.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a wonderful honor. The Middle East now is seething with crisis after crisis. Now, very few realize the significance of what is going on now in the Middle East. As I said, Bible prophecy shows very plainly that the whole center of world disturbances is going to be in the Middle East from now on until Armageddon, the final battle of World War III, and the end of this world. Now, I have a booklet just off the press. It is a reprint of an article that appeared some little time ago in The Plain Truth, but it tells you about this whole Middle Eastern situation, and it's entitled The Middle East in Prophecy. What is happening in the Middle East? Why is it leading into the end of this world? Why is the Middle East so important? The things that are going on in Beirut and in Lebanon, continual strife and trouble. It's first one thing and then another. I'd like to send it to you, and there is no request for money. It's absolutely free, and we don't ask for any contributions. We don't beg for money on the air. I hope you've noticed that and the great difference. Now, at the same time, if you're not already a subscriber, we'll put you on the subscription list for a free year's subscription to The Plain Truth, the world's finest magazine and one of the world's largest circulated magazines in the world. Now, over 6 million copies every issue going out. Now, this most recent number is looking forward to 1984. Where in the world are we headed is on the front cover. Now, there's an article by me, Are People Lost Because of Adam's Sin? Many people are puzzled about that. Some people say, why should all the world be lost because of Adam's sin? Well, I think you'd like to read that. That's an editorial that I have written myself. Then there's an article here coming, A Europe Between East and the West. In other words, the Soviet Union now is interested in Europe uniting and withdrawing from the United States and being a wedge between Russia and the United States. And in a way that they don't realize, and very few realize, that very thing is prophesied and is going to happen. And the medieval Holy Roman Empire, as it was called, is going to be restored. Here's another article, Why the Passion for Pleasure. It seems that people are just in a passion for pleasure today. Here's another article, Children of Divorce. What happens to the children of divorced family? Then here's one, the Habsburg Empire, and it's going to be restored again. Now, the heir to that empire, Otto von Habsburg, recently flew from Europe over to Pasadena, California, to have a conference with me. And our world news editor was present in the conferences that we had, and we've had another conference together with him in Europe on this most recent trip beside. You need to read that, what is going on in Europe and what is going to happen. Another one is A New Dark Age Coming. The Plain Truth is chock full of articles on world conditions, on world news, explaining world news, giving you the real cause and purpose of what is going on in the world, where it's leading, what's going to happen next, what does Bible prophecy say about it, and not only on news, but on personal and family living, and what life is all about, and things that you need to know. So, for that, in this booklet on the Middle East and what is going on in the Middle East today, and understanding that you need, you just send your request to me, Herbert W. Armstrong, Pasadena, California. Now that's Herbert W. Armstrong, Pasadena, California, 91123 is the zip code. But better yet, go to the telephone right now. Call now. It's a free call. You dial 800. That's a free call. Then 423-4444. That's 800. Then 423-4444. Now from Alaska and Hawaii, you dial collect 213-304-6111. Now that's collect 213-304-6111. So until next time, Herbert W. Armstrong, goodbye, friends.
For the free literature offered on this program, write Herbert W. Armstrong, Pasadena, California, 91123. In Canada, Box 44, Vancouver, BC. Or in the continental United States, including California, you may call this toll-free number, 800-423-4444. In Alaska and Hawaii, call collect 213-304-6111. If the lines are busy, please try again. The preceding program and all literature were produced and sponsored by the Worldwide Church of God.